Now, the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, yesterday expressed outrage over what it described as fiscal vandalism by the President Bola Tinubu administration that's following the approval of yet another $21 billion in foreign loans by the National Assembly. ADC said the new wave of borrowing will drive Nigeria's public debt beyond 200 trillion naira before the end of the year, with no corresponding development or economic revival to justify it. In a statement signed by its National Publicity Secretary, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, ADC accused Tinubu of surpassing his predecessor by mortgaging the country's future in mountains of debt in the name of economic reform. The party also slammed the National Assembly for acting as a rubber stamp, saying lawmakers have abdicated their duty to protect Nigerians from the consequences of unsustainable debt. Well, in more political news, a founding member of the People's Democratic Party, Professor Jerry Ghana, has disclosed that he was holding discussions with the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and other prominent southern political figures ahead of the 2027 general election. The former Minister of Information disclosed this during an interview monitored by This Day newspaper. The PDP Deputy National Publicity Secretary, Ibrahim Abdullahi, had earlier stated that Peter Obi is our product. I quote, "We want to get him back indeed, because he is a very, very great capital for any political party," end of quote. When asked to confirm the discussion with Obi during the interview, Ghana said, and I quote, "Yes, why not? He was our member. In fact, if I were the former vice president, I would have said in 2023, no, Peter, you were my vice presidential candidate in 2019. Now I will support you. It would have been a strong statement," end of quote. Well, Ghana, who is leading one of the party's consultative delegations, said although formal talks with Obi had not yet occurred, discussions were underway with people close to him. Finally, in the National Assembly, the Senate has issued a firm denial of recent media reports suggesting a rift between the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and Leader of the Senate, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. The purported altercation allegedly occurred during a recent executive session convened to deliberate on whether the Senate should proceed on its annual recess. In a press statement released on Sunday, Senator Yemi Adaramodu, chairman of the Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs, dismissed the reports as baseless and misleading. He clarified the accounts misrepresent the nature of parliamentary deliberations and the time-honored traditions that govern legislative practices, both in Nigeria and across democratic institutions worldwide. Adaramodu stressed that robust debates and intense scrutiny of legislative matters are not only routine, but are hallmarks of a vibrant democracy. Well, joining us on the political brief to discuss these stories is Arise Director of News and Politics Editor, Sumner Sambo. Hello, Sumner. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Dr. Abati and Rufai, the rest of the crew.
All right, let's get straight into it. There were reports of drama on the floor of the Senate. This is being refuted. Your take on this reported tension between Godswill Akpabio and Bamidele Opeyemi, Majority Leader?
All right, this is not unusual, actually, like the statement has said. But one key factor that Senator Yemi Adaramodu refused to actually answer is whether indeed the Nigerian Senate in this year has met the constitutionally required 180 days to sit before embarking on its 2 months annual recess. That key question, which was the subject of altercation between both the Majority Leader and the Senate President, remains unanswered in the statement issued by Senator Yemi Adaramodu. And I think Nigerians deserve that, because it was on the strength of that question that some other senators have spoken, including the former Senate Leader, Senator Ali Ndume, who had said that he's actually shocked himself that the Senate leadership hardly meets before coming to address members at the floor during plenary. If you remember, Ali Ndume himself was a former Majority Leader, a former Senate Leader during the Bukola Saraki 8th National Assembly. So these key questions are actually what Nigerians desire to know. And what it means also is that Senator Akpabio needs to also improve the way he relates with his colleagues, because I had learned that he actually kept saying that he had been a two-term governor, he had been a minister, and then, of course, being a Senate president. So acting in executive capacity is different from becoming the president of the Senate. You are the first among equals, and you're supposed to carry your leadership along, sit down, have meetings, deliberate on issues before you eventually come to the floor of the plenary. Yeah, sometimes the office of the Senate president could actually be very busy, and it's difficult for them to convene some of those meetings. But there are some housekeeping rules that the Senate president cannot but actually attend to before coming to plenary to pass across certain messages. So these are the key things Nigerians will be looking out for. And it's not unusual for members of parliament to actually debate issues like the Senate spokesman tried to make us look. But when it comes from the Senate leader and the Senate president having issues coming from the same party, then of course you understand that the schism between both is growing. And the key factor here is that it's difficult because of the way Senator Akpabio emerged. And then, of course, there are different blocs that are still angling for that position in the Senate.
All right. Real quickly, I mean, Sumner, I don't know if you've been able to dig deep into what was even discussed that day, because we need to know. Because we're hearing various stories. It was not only because of Senate meeting the threshold. There was a particular decision that was taken that they also discussed about. I don't know if you hear about that. Secondly, your reactions to Minister Wike's talk, about coalition. I know we have a guest that's going to be talking about that. Can you just, sound off on that a bit? Your thoughts on that?
Well, so the issue of the Senate leadership that I talked about, there are so many issues actually that are ongoing, like what had happened to Natasha and all of that. People think that the Senate president seems to be personalizing the issues, and you would have seen that even the issues that went before the court, it was the Senate president that went to court, not the Senate as an institution and all of that. So, I mean, there are those talks here and there that Senator Akpabio needs to understand when issues have to do with the office of the Senate president, different from himself when issues have to do with him. And this also shows the sort of leadership that is being expected of him. He should understand that the office of Senate president is a highly exalted position. There needs to be more communication. You're first among equal, talk more, do more. And yeah, I mean, the tendency is not for it to be antagonistic to the executive, but of course, it's not everything that should come from the executive that should just pass through easily. So these are some of the things that his colleagues expect from him because, they don't like the stamp, the rubber stamp tag that we keep tagging on them as Nigerians. On the issue of the ADC you talked about, I think the APC will just be joking if it just keeps taking the ADC as just one of those political parties that I can toy around with. I mean, the APC started at this formative stage when a whole lot of Nigerians didn't give them opportunities. They were laughing at them. There's a lot of disaffection within the APC itself. Some governors who would want to take certain steps, maybe towards ADC, wouldn't want to do that right now because of the body language of the president and all of that. Yes, while the ADC has its own issues, and we haven't really seen a clear path from that political party led by Senator David Mark at the moment, and of course with all the legal entanglement surrounding their coming together. Nonetheless, I think those in the governing party should be very careful, because if you had listened to what Senator Ali Ndume had said some time ago, he said, it's the politicians that are defecting, the people are not defecting. So where exactly are the people's body language going towards? That's what I think the APC should be thinking towards at the moment.
Okay, let's talk about fiscal vandalism that the ADC is alleging. Now, we don't expect the ADC to say anything nice about the incumbent government, but we are aware that in May, this same government had asked for $21.5 billion, which the National Assembly already approved. Now, last week or so, they are asking for $347 million to be used as variation on the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, and then $47 million to be used for internet telecommunications access. Now, so this fiscal vandalism that they are talking about, what are your thoughts? Because the main question is, the government, the National Assembly is saying, we have not even reached the threshold, international threshold of 56%, but that we are around 50%. But the fear, as you have pointed out, is that we may even exceed that 56% threshold that is internationally recommended. Where is all the money going? in real terms?
Very good question. Yeah, very good question, Dr. Abati. And I think that's what I expect the African Democratic Congress to actually be asking, to be interested in. Where exactly is this money going to? Because borrowing itself is not bad. It's what the monies are being borrowed for that a whole lot of Nigerians should be, questioning. And then as an alternative political voice, we expect the ADC to be proffering solutions. So when they criticize, provide solutions ahead too. Because it's a mixed grill, politicians inventing words every now and then. Just like the ADC is calling this fiscal vandalism. That's the same way that's the same way Bola Tinubu then, as APC leader in 2014, had referred to Jonathan's $1 billion that he had asked the National Assembly to, that he had sent as a request to the National Assembly then. Then opposition leader Bola Tinubu said that was a dubious $1 billion loan request. He specifically called it Jonathan's $1 billion dubious $1 billion loan request. And I'm wondering why exactly these politicians do not enlighten Nigerians. We are not really as rich as we think. We can't but borrow. Right now, if you look at, in terms of dollar terms, how much we have borrowed at the moment as at March, our total borrowings about $98 billion. That's like 149 trillion naira. Yes, we haven't reached that threshold. We can still borrow and all of that. But let's begin to question where the projects are going to. The coastal highway, is it very important? How necessary? And these are all contained in the MTEF for 2025-2026, which is an open document that was agreed to by the National Assembly. And it's not only the federal government that borrows within the MTEF. Both states and federal government are supposed to do all of that. So in a nutshell, due to time constraints, we are not doing that badly. Because if you look at the US, for example, the US has $36 trillion debt, and Nigeria's debt in terms of dollars is about $98 billion. So, well, we need to question exactly what is going to happen. Because if the ADC does come to power, I can tell you that they will borrow money. And in my parting shot, Doctor, who was the person who approved Jonathan's $1 billion in 2014? Well, it was Senator David Mark, who was then the president of the Nigerian Senate. And if that happened then, why is it wrong for the Tinubu administration to also borrow to fund government programs?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sumner.